Hi, we're live here at the Mother Earth News Fair, and I'm going to walk you through sharpening hand tools. In particular, I'm going to do a chisel, a knife, and then an axe. First thing I need is a volunteer, so somebody step up. Come on up. Okay, you're going to do something that's going to make every woodworker in the world cringe. You're going to dull a chisel.
My pleasure.
The safe way to do this, instead of jabbing at it, you throw big chips and I get in trouble. Hold it with whichever hand you like, keep your hand to one side, put it in the groove on the opposite side, and scrape away as hard as you want. Do it on this side so in case you slip, you don't get your thumb. You tell me when you're ready. Whenever you think it's dull enough. Yeah.
Is it dull?
I think it's dull.
All right, let's see what you got here. Yeah, we can go a little further.
There you go.
All right. You can get a look at that. You can see that there's a flat on the end of that.
Yep.
Yep. You guys can go ahead and pass that around. Make sure that's dull enough for you. Carborundum stone. This is silicon carbide. It is a very, very hard material. It is essentially one step below diamond in hardness. So it's going to cut any kind of steel you come across. Sharpening chisels. There's a lot of stuff out there that people are going to try and sell you jigs or little pieces of equipment that's going to hold it at a particular angle. The beauty of chisels is they already have an angle built in. Once I get that back, chisels are only sharpened on one side. You can see this side has a bevel, this side is flat. This is the bevel you're going to try and match. You don't need a jig, you don't need any fancy equipment. Lay it on your stone, tip it up. When you feel it hit the flat, that's the angle you want. You can change it if you want, you can make it shallower, you can make it deeper if you want to change the chisel angle, but it's entirely unnecessary. Most people will never do that. So, lay it flat, tip it up, find that angle. Downward pressure is important. For normal sharpening, you want to put about 1 to 2 fingers worth of pressure. You can use your whole hand to do it, but 1 to 2 fingers worth is kind of your benchmark. This has been very abused at this point, so I'm going to put a little more pressure on it to speed things up. You can either do a push stroke or a draw stroke. Either one works. It's a matter of what you're more comfortable with. The push stroke tends to wear the stone faster, but it also removes steel faster. The draw stroke is more for people who aren't quite comfortable pushing the edge towards something. The only difference that it really causes in sharpening is it forms more of a wire edge or a burr, which is a little piece of steel that folds over, but I'm going to show you how to take that off anyway. So, tip it up, find your angle, downward pressure, start working. Try and use the whole surface of the stone. If you are only working on one side of the stone or only in the middle, it's going to wear the stone unevenly. If you get a gouge in this direction on the stone, it makes it very difficult to sharpen in the future. So just try and use the whole surface of the stone. Don't worry about the fact that I am taking a little bit of material off the stone. What that is doing is actually exposing fresh crystal edges, and the more fresh crystal edges, the faster the stone cuts. So keep working it forward, speed it up here. Normal people don't tend to work at my pace. I do this a lot. Figure once you're starting on this, you're going to work at about 1/3 of my pace. So, now, at this point, I'm just taking a quick look and seeing if I need to remove any more material anywhere. What you're looking for, when you saw it was shiny on the end before, you're trying to wear that away evenly. A lot of times you'll tend to put more pressure on the back side or the front side, depending on how you're holding it. So you just keep an eye on it, make sure you're wearing it away evenly. Now, at this point, I have taken away pretty much all the damage you did, but that wire edge has formed. To take that off, you lay it flat on the stone, work it back and forth. That folds that wire edge back over, then 1 or 2 push strokes. Doing very, very coarse carpentry, starting on the coarse side of this stone, you don't really have to go any further, but most carpentry, same thing. Flip it up, find your angle. Use the whole surface of the stone.
Hey, Jonathan, we had a question from Carlos. He wants to know, don't you have to add water to the stone?
No. On a carborundum stone like this, they are a very porous stone to begin with. You put water on it, it soaks right through, so it doesn't really make any difference. I'm going to be using some stones in a minute that you do want to lubricate. So keep working that forward until you think you've erased the scratches from the previous stone. That's all you're doing once you establish that edge, is erasing the big coarse scratches with finer scratches. Sharpening is not this mythical, magical thing that you have to spend years learning and, you know, find this amazing equipment and everything. You can do it with a rock you pick up off the ground if you're motivated enough.
Jonathan, you're getting some fans in here. One, Ebony says she really likes the way you caress the stone.
Sorry, I'm taken.
Oh. Getting a fan following.
So at this point, you guys can pass that around, take a good look at it. This is as much as most carpenters will ever go with on a chisel, but we're going to go sharper.
So Mary wants to know, how do you know if an old stone is carborundum or whatever it could be?
Carborundum or silicon carbide, the stones tend to be a blue or bluish gray color. If you get orange stones, for instance, those are what's usually referred to as an India stone. That's going to be aluminum oxide. There's a lot of different sharpening stone materials out there, but for the most part, carborundum stones will be a blue or bluish gray color. Okay, the next stone I'm going to work up to is a natural Arkansas stone. Unlike the carborundum stone, which is a synthetic material, this is an actual rock that is quarried out of the ground, and you might be able to tell by the name Arkansas stone that it is quarried in Arkansas. So, with an Arkansas stone, you do want to lubricate it. Some people use water. I don't find that to be too effective. All this is a light mineral oil. Obviously, I sell it here behind me, but if you are looking for some near you, all you need to do is go to your local pharmacy. It will be there. It will be pharmaceutical grade mineral oil, and it will be in the laxative section. Apparently, if you drink enough of it. Yeah. So, just applying a light coat across. You cannot over oil these stones. The oil is cheap. Be generous. If you don't use enough, it is possible to clog up these stones, and then it makes it more difficult to sharpen in the future. So, same basic technique. Flip it up, find your angle, push or draw strokes, whichever you're more comfortable with. Pardon me, I'm going to take a drink here in a second. Again, just erasing those previous scratches. Lay it flat. Move that burr to the front. Knock it off. This is going to satisfy pretty much any carpenter you hand it to. Now, I can take this finer and finer. I can take it up to sharp to finer stones.
Yep.
But most people
Very sharp.
don't want to see that. Sharpening a chisel can go as long as I want, and you're going to get bored with it eventually. So, we're going to move up to doing a knife.
Now, are the Arkansas stones at standard porosity mostly, or do they vary?
They vary. There's different grades. I'm going to walk through that in a minute.
Okay, great.
This is a hard Arkansas stone. Back behind me, there are soft, hard, black, and the ones that I have sold out on the top are translucent. I'm going to be using a translucent stone in a minute, and I'll explain the difference. All right, yet again, I do need a volunteer. Who's going to step up? All right, you're going to step up. You're doing the same thing as her, just with a knife. So hold on tight. Don't cut yourself, please. Scrape it back and forth as much as you want.
I don't generally do that with my knives, but
you know what? You know what? You might not do it, but I bet someone here does, even if they don't realize it. You ever have a kitchen knife that just keeps getting dull and you don't know why? Are you using it to, are you using it to cut on a ceramic plate? Because that's what this essentially is. A brick is no different than a ceramic plate in terms of how hard it is. It's harder than steel. So, my girlfriend has yet to learn that message no matter how many times I tell her, so I always have to sharpen my knives. Whenever you think it's dull enough, you let me know.
yes.
Alright, let me look at it. Okay, so, I'm going to go a little bit further. We got a couple sparks that time. Alright, you guys can pass that around, make sure that's plenty dull.
Oh, yeah.
Can you get a good edge on a Swiss Army knife?
I can get a good edge on anything. all the technique that I'm using, it's
good enough to put in.
Yeah. All the technique that I'm using here, it transfers from one knife to another. There's really only two different ways to sharpen things. It's either a single-sided bevel or a double-sided bevel. And single-sided bevel is how you do chisels, double-sided bevel is how you do knives. So, at this point, you can see there's a lot of light shining off that. Same basic thing as before. Now with knives, you'll find on internet forums a lot of information where people are saying, oh, you know, if you have to sharpen your knife at 17 degrees or 15 degrees, 22 degrees, they'll pick a number and they'll say, you have to sharpen to exactly that angle or it's never going to work. Frankly, that's a big load of bull. Throughout most of human history, knives were sharpened freehand on a stone of some type. Your hand is never going to be perfect. You are not a machine. You form a natural convex by just that little bit of variation in your hand. And throughout most of human history, people said, is it sharp? Great. Is it not? Okay, I'm going to sharpen it. They didn't care about the angle. So,
Does it matter if you're left-handed or right-handed?
well, you could have a left-handed knife, I guess, if you really wanted to. I am a lefty. But, so, what you're going to do with that knife is tip it up to an angle that seems right to you. Different knives are going to be sharpened at different angles. A kitchen knife is typically going to be a much shallower angle than a heavy-use outdoors knife. Find an angle that seems right to you. For me, on this, I don't want to change the angle too much, so I'm going to tip it up so that edge of the blade just barely touches the stone. Tip it up, take it across. Again, you can do a push stroke like I do, or you can do a draw stroke, whichever you're more comfortable with. Now, with these coarse stones and doing a double-sided bevel like this, you have to make sure you get a roughly equal number of strokes per side. If not, what happens is you move the edge and the steel to one side or the other, and if you are working in certain materials, thick leather is a really good one, you can actually start cutting and it'll just start cutting crooked. So, roughly equal number of strokes per side. If you're off by one or two, it's not the end of the world.
You're going pretty fast.
I do go fast. I do a lot of these. I can do it without watching. So, again, don't worry about taking material off the top. It's not actually hurting the stone. Consider the synthetic stones like this semi-disposable. You're going to wear them out relatively quickly, but you'll get enough use out of them. This is also a stone that I've been beating up for a while, and it's kind of losing some of its love.
Can you re-square the top of it?
You can flatten these. It's not really that necessary for if you're doing freehand sharpening like this. So you guys can look and you can see there's no longer a flap on the end of that. So I have established an edge. All right, but it's a very, very coarse edge. So flipping over to the other side of the stone, same basic thing, find your angle. Normal people do not work anywhere near the speed I do. With a little bit of practice, figure you're going to be able to work about a third of my pace. A decent amount of practice, you can work at half my pace. If you're insane and spend your life sharpening things, then you get to work as fast as me. Now, at this point, coming off the finer side of the carborundum stone, if you are just keeping a knife, you guys can pass it around. If you're just keeping a knife out in the barn to cut open hay bales or feed bags, that's actually a great option. It grabs fibrous material and cuts through it really well because it has a slightly toothy edge. It's also really good to have one like that in the kitchen for cutting tomatoes. Tomato skin is one of those things where it's a little bit weird, and sometimes a really polished knife just kind of skates off it, but having that toothy edge, it bites right in and slices through. But for a general use knife, you want to take it up a little higher. So again, going back to the hard Arkansas stone. While we are going through this, the 4 grades of stone that I carry are soft, hard, black, and translucent, and that is ascending order on how keen an edge they will give. Because these are a naturally quarried stone, they are not graded by grit size because they are not a 100% uniform grit size. They are officially graded by density. Give you a ballpark on the grit range for the stuff that I sell. The soft stone is equivalent to about a 400 grit synthetic stone. The hard is about a 600 grit. The black from my supplier is somewhere in the 1,000, 1,100 grit. Black can vary quite a bit depending on supplier, from 800 to about 1,400. And then the translucent, which I'm going to be using in a minute, is up in the 2,200 range. So, same thing on this. After you apply some light mineral oil, find your angle, push or draw strokes. All you're doing, again, is just taking finer and finer scratches to erase the coarser ones from before. Getting into the Arkansas stones, if you're off by a few strokes, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. You're not removing enough material to really make a huge difference. all you guys out there on the internet, if you got questions, ask them.
So Odile wanted to know, where do you get stones from?
I get mine, I obviously buy them wholesale. I get them through Dan's Whetstone. It's a company out of Arkansas.
And then a few people were just asking how long these stones last, and then a number of people were telling stories about stones that had passed between members of their family and things like that.
The finer stones last a very, very long time. You guys can kind of pass this around as it is. This is kind of the level I refer to as kitchen knife sharp. It's about as sharp as anything you get from a factory today, and it is going to be as sharp as most people have ever had a knife. But we can go a whole lot sharper. Now I am pulling out the translucent stone. This is a very, very large translucent stone. This is a 10 by 3 by 1 inch thick. There's a reason I don't sell stones this big, because this stone that I buy for my use is about $400. But normal people can't justify that. Same basic thing though, light mineral oil all the way across. Nice even coat. You cannot over oil these stones. Be generous with it.
And Robert wants to know, the higher the number means the finer the grit?
Basically, yeah. There are different grit systems out there too, so if you see like Japanese water stones, those are graded on a different grit system, and it's not easy to compute between them. Japanese water stones, divide it by about 7, and that gives you a ballpark of what it would be if it was an American grit rating system. So, with this stone, this is really more polishing than removing material. If you look close in a second, you'll be able to see a few gray stripes forming on the stone. That is what material is coming off the blade. So, if you can be off by 10 strokes per side on this thing, it ain't going to make a bit of difference. Now, again, just erasing the previous scratches.
It seems real similar to wood. I'm a carpenter, and if you sand and you start with 60 grit and you go down to 120, if you try to skip and go real fine.
Yep, you don't want to make too much work for yourself. In theory, I could take a dead dull knife and do all the work with this stone. It would just take me all day. So, once you think you've gotten to the point where it's pretty much as good as it's going to get, you can take a little less pressure on that, just lighter and lighter strokes. That can give you a slightly finer edge. Most people won't notice the difference, but I'm kind of obsessive. So, now, if I have done this right, it's the last sharpening demo of the weekend. I am tired. If I'm going to screw up, this is the moment that I do it. But if I have sharpened it right...
You don't have any more hair, do you?
Yeah, I'm running out of hair. I don't know if you guys can get a good view of that.
Yep.
Now, that was, what, maybe 7 minutes ago that was dulled on a brick. If I'm not doing the discussion like this, I can do that same work in about 3 minutes. Figure a normal person would take about 10. So, but that was dulled on a brick. You know? All right.
And are you going to strop those knives?
No, stropping, if you use a good enough stone, is entirely unnecessary. I can already shave with that. The strop doesn't get me any further. Stropping does a couple of things. If you're using a bare leather strop, all that's doing is knocking off the wire edge. And if you're adding abrasive to a leather strop, what you're doing at that point is just making a really soft and not too great sharpening stone that wears out quickly. Now, there are people out there on the internet that I'm sure are screaming at me for that statement. But that's my opinion.
Not yet. We're not getting the stroppers just yet.
Okay, who did this? I can't remember who dulled it. You were a friendly volunteer. You get to keep a knife. I'd give you the chisel, but it's really a horrible chisel. Okay, somebody go back there and pick an axe. If you're nice, you pick one with a short handle. If you want to challenge me, you pick a big handle. I will tell you, you cannot stump me. I sharpened a 7-pounder in the last demo, so somebody grab an axe.
And a few people were asking what you're doing here, who you are, just new people to the
Okay,
feed.
my name is John LaValle. I am the owner of LaValle Outdoors. I restore old tools for a living and obviously sharpen stuff. I'm here at the Mother Earth News Fair doing a sharpening demonstration. I've just gone through a chisel and a knife, and now I'm going to get an axe. Whenever somebody hands me one, come on.
What's the, there you go, best all around.
There you go.
I assume,
Oh, you got one. All right.
I assume you sell stones.
I do sell stones.
What's the best all around?
If you're only going to buy one stone for typical knife sharpening,
knife sharpening.
buy a hard Arkansas. That's my opinion. It's coarse enough that it will do a decent amount of material removal, but it is going to give you a reasonably fine edge.
Now that's on both sides.
Yeah, it's a one solid piece of stone.
What'd you call it again?
A hard Arkansas. That's the
Hard
one.
Arkansas.
The second up on the rack. It's
60
this
all
stone right here. No, it's $25. It's $25
25.
for that size. The next one up is the black. I didn't show you a black. I skip grades when I'm doing this. That will give you an edge closer to this. So, all right. Now, I already know what this is like coming off of my table, so I don't need to go with a coarse stone. Most people sharpening an axe aren't going to go anything beyond the fine side of the carborundum stone. But just to show you guys it can be done, I'm going to use the Arkansas stone. Same basic technique applies to an axe as does a knife. It's a double-sided bevel. It's just like a knife, but with a really long handle. So, nice even coat of oil. There are a couple different ways to approach this. Something with a short handle like this, most people don't have any problems moving the blade across the stone. But if you're working with a bigger axe or you're not too comfortable moving that kind of thing, if you've got a really long handle or something, you can hold the axe stationary and move the stone. It's entirely acceptable, nothing wrong with it. It's whichever one you're more comfortable with. Again, you can do push or draw strokes on this. Try and work your way across. Again, use as much of the surface of the stone as possible. Try and keep wear even. Roughly even number of strokes.
So do hard Arkansas stones have a grit number associated with
They
them?
do not officially have a grit number. Because the way these are officially graded, they are graded by density. If they are calling it a hard Arkansas and they are a reputable dealer, they're all going to be roughly the same grit range as this, which is in the 600 range, give or take. Okay. But it is a naturally quarried product, and it's a rock coming out of the ground. They can't guarantee it. That's why they don't give you a grit rating. All right, that is the basics of sharpening. I'm happy to take any and all questions.
How did you do that?
You should have got here earlier.
Exactly.
Jonathan, you just want to sign off for these people?
Okay, that's it from the Valley Outdoors booth at the Mother Earth News Fair in Seven Springs, Pennsylvania.